Good morning and welcome to Brandenburg News Network. I am Donna Brandenburg, and it is the 6th day of December 2024. How you doing with your Christmas shopping out there? I'm kind of a little bit ahead of the curve, but I've got a few concerns, so I guess we're going to work on that this weekend. Anyhow, today is going to be fun. So Nick Prill is going to be on to start us out with the Kent County GOP and what happened at the Kent County GOP convention this week. And I just got to say, give credit where credit's due. Nick took a difficult situation and he elegantly handled this so well. And you could tell the entire tone of the room changed when he was up in front handling the meeting after he got voted in his chair. And so bravo to Nick. It was wonderful. And then after that, we walk right into Off the Grid with Dr. David Kent, Karen the Riveter, and Ralph the IT guy. And then at the next hour, it's going to be our investigative citizen journalist panel with Christina Holbrook from Thought Criminals, Melissa Fryzel, and Chris Deal, American Security. We're going to be doing more investigative stuff, and it's really interesting to watch things that you've started expand and include more people so that we can get more truth out there. And we're going to continue to be committed to basically fast news, focused news, fearless news, as well as telling the truth, even if people don't want to hear it. This is a truly non-censorship platform. And with that said, morning. Let's see. Here we go. Morning, Nick. How you doing?
Good morning, Donna. I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Yeah. Did you have a good week after the convention?
I did. It's been, there's highs and lows, right? It was certainly a good convention. There's always, people that feel that things could have been done a little bit differently. But all in all, feedback has been really positive. Just looking forward to the next steps now, right? So.
Yeah, you did an amazing job. Can you, I know I interviewed you after that, but where we're in this space right now, can you give everybody kind of an update on what led up to the convention and then how you really brought it back to center? And what I saw is that you really were sticking to the rules so that everyone's voices were respected under Robert's rules. And it really was well handled.
Yeah, and I was on the show 3 weeks ago. The morning after our November 14th convention, and that convention, as we talked about then, was called for the sole purpose of elevating 55 delegates that were not elected in the August primary, and it was certainly a lot of people saw it for what it was. It was a power play. The current leadership trying to bring on some new delegates in order to maintain power and have a stronger voting bloc. And, that wasn't an open, transparent process. Nobody had a chance to elevate or, to vet the delegates. So we went into that convention, and that convention did not follow any parliamentary, general parliamentary procedures. Several of us, started trying to make motions, trying to, to be heard so that we could follow some rules and have some, have some order to the business. And we were ruled out of order. We ended up taking over the floor, as you can in parliamentary procedure, and adjourning the convention. They did go on to conduct the business that they thought was valid, and actually elect those 55 delegates. With only so there was 197 delegates at that convention, and only 63 people stayed and voted. So a super majority of the body didn't want any part of what was going on. So we adjourned the convention, we left, and that's what had me on your show, last 3 weeks ago. Since then, there's been lots of discussions, kind of coalition building. People that didn't really like the fact that their voices were silenced at that convention, that we didn't get a chance to be heard. We did reach out to the Michigan Republican Party. We got an opinion letter from them, after they reviewed everything, saying, kind of confirming the beliefs that I had, when I came on your show, that, they absolutely violated, Michigan compiled law, and they also violated, general parliamentary practices, Robert's Rules of Order, and that in the opinion of the Michigan Republican Party, that those delegates were null and void, and would need to be seated properly at a later time. So that led us to, this convention that we had on Tuesday night, where we knew we were going to have to deal with the credential challenge right away. They did still choose to seat any of those 55 delegates that were there. They credentialed them and seated them. So going into it, we knew we were going to have some challenges there. We challenged it. The overwhelming majority of the body voted in favor of not seating those delegates, respecting the fact that, laws weren't followed. We're the party of law and order. And after that, there was a little bit of contention around, again, whether or not they were going to follow MCL and Robert's Rules of Order that state before you can conduct any business at that convention, you have to elect a permanent chairman, because the current county chair has the duty under MCL to gavel in the convention as the temporary chair. He unfortunately he had foot surgery and wasn't able to be at the convention, so he had his vice chair gavel in the meeting as the temporary chair. But they had no plans of electing a permanent chairperson, so we had to make motions from the floor again. We were ruled out of order, but I will give hats off to Kathy Clark, that was the temporary chair. She did do a much better job at chairing that than what we saw in November, where she did allow, even though her rulings weren't in my opinion in line with the law. When we did challenge that and appeal the ruling of the chair, she allowed that process to take place as designed, and the body voted on it, and overwhelming majority of the room again, saying, yep, we don't agree with the decision of the chair here, and then the motion came to the floor for us to elect a permanent chairperson. I was nominated, as was Kathy Clark, and I believe one other individual, and we did a standing vote for that. And I had Donna, you were there. I had a pretty solid majority of that room that wanted me to step in and chair the convention, and I did. We established some rules. We voted on them. We appointed some officers, and we broke into our sub caucuses. In those sub caucuses, which are based on geography, people were able to nominate, a certain number of members to serve on the executive committee, which will lead the county party for the next 2 years. And it was a very free, fair, open process. No slates, no backroom deals, no leadership trying to pick winners and losers. It was, I think it was as fair as it could have possibly been, and I think that's why the energy coming out of the convention is so positive. Is even some of the people that didn't get elected, they don't feel like they weren't elected because somebody was out to get them, or their name wasn't on a list or wasn't on a slate. Right? They had an opportunity to campaign in their sub caucuses, and then majority of the people in their sub caucus voted, and if they didn't win, they the encouragement is for them to still stick around, because there's going to be a lot of opportunity for people to be plugged in to volunteer or serve on subcommittees of the county party, which is really where a lot of the business should take place. But I guess that's kind of it in a nutshell, or not, maybe not in a nutshell, but
Yeah, it was interesting, and I think just to excuse me, align everybody's expectations. It's sort of like a family in a way. Whenever you're in a group that makes group decisions, and you're never going to agree all the time, but if you've got like some rules of respect and a little bit of rules of order, things just typically work a little better. And it seemed like it was such an improvement over the last one. And so, the room really did change when you stepped up on the podium there, and you took control of the meeting. The whole room did change, and I was just kind of watching everything from the back, in the guest section. And so it was an interesting process to watch how that was resolved.
Yeah. And Donna, I think I talked about this on the show previously, but in Robert's Rules of Order, I think it's right in the preamble, it talks about, the purpose of Robert's Rules of Order is to ensure the will of the majority while protecting the rights of the minority, right? So, and that was really the premise that I took in chairing that convention. Everybody had a voice. Everybody that wanted to say something was heard. Every delegate has the same authority as any other delegate in that room, right? And even as the chairperson, my role is to facilitate, just to facilitate the process, right? Not necessarily to, have any authority over the delegates. It's merely to bring, some sort of order to the structure of the meeting. I had no agenda of what to achieve that night. All I had was an agenda of how we were going to achieve it, and it was a free, fair, transparent process, fully in line with Robert's Rules of Order.
And so many good people there. I was able to really meet and talk to a lot of really nice people there that were really trying to do the right thing by getting involved in this level of government, which was inspiring to see. So is there anything else that you want to let everybody know what's going on, or what happened, or what's coming up?
Yeah. So, there's out of that convention, we elected 38 executive committee members.
Is there a list of that somewhere where people can know who?
Yeah, there is, and I'll get something over to you, Donna. We're waiting on the county clerk to, per statute, the county party secretary has to certify those results, and then it has to go to the county clerk. I just want to make sure the list is officially, stamped, and then I can certainly get a list of them to you. But there's 38 that were elected by the precinct delegates. There's another 42 that are defined in state statute as statutory members of the executive committee. And those are, really anybody that ran in the primary and won their primary election for, the state house seats, the state senate seats, in any of the countywide positions within Kent County. So those 42 plus the 38, and then there's three vacancies that we held back for the new officers of the executive committee. And what that looks like is within 30 days of the convention, but actually before December 31st, those that were elected at the convention, those that are statutorily defined, need to come together to have an organizational meeting and elect the leadership for the county party to serve for the next 2 years. So there's 4 officer positions: chair, vice chair, secretary, and treasurer. That meeting has actually been called. I think we're going to be having it on December 16th, where we'll get together. We'll have an open nomination process and vote on who we want to really take on those leadership roles for the next 2 years. Out of that, we'll have the official executive committee going into 2024 or 2025. Sorry, the 2025-2026. We'll have our first official executive committee meeting in January, where we'll appoint subcommittees, things of that nature. And really start to break up the work that needs to be done. We've got a huge opportunity in 2026 in Michigan, right? Every seat is up for re-election, governor, state house, state senate. There's a huge opportunity for us to do to Lansing what we just did to Washington, D.C. And that's going to take, people coming together that have traditionally been within different factions of the party. But coming together, working to grow the party, raise some money that we're going to need for the elections, and steering that boat in the same direction so that we're as prepared as possible going into the election year in 2026, and doing our part in Kent County to try and protect the seats in Kent County, but also what we can do to be an influence on the statewide elections and flipping things in Lansing. So.
That sounds like excuse me. It sounds like a good idea. I would really like to see the Republican Party reaching out, not just to Republicans, but to Americans. There's a lot of people who are lost and disenfranchised with what excuse me, has gone on in the past. And I think that would be a really good thing to make sure that everybody knows that there's an open door to the party and to including other people, because like I said, there's so much hurt going on across the state, not just disenfranchised Republicans or independents, but also the Democrats that are out there that know that the party is complete crap and with no leadership. But historically, neither party has had a strong leadership in a very, very long time. So I think that's something that I think all of us look forward to seeing as some changes, and hopefully they're going to be significant enough to make a huge difference if the right people are involved. So, to steer it and have the guts to do the right thing. So, And
look, Donna, Ronald Reagan was so successful in building the Big Tent Party because he built coalitions, right? He ended up going on to win 49 of the 50 states. And he had the person that agrees with me 80% of the time is my friend and ally, not a 20% traitor. There's been a lot of purity test things going on in the Republican Party for the last couple of years, and it's caused a lot of different fractures and factions within the party. If we look at what Donald Trump has been able to do, right? Bringing over RFK Jr., right? Building a coalition there. There's a lot of Democrats that voted for President Trump. There's a lot of independents that voted for President Trump. President Trump won so overwhelmingly because he was able to build coalitions and pull those voters over that were disenfranchised from the independent or from the Democrat Party. So, we've got to follow that same methodology in our state and start building these coalitions, reaching out to people, finding those people that we agree with on 80%, focus on the major issues that conservatives care about, and really, put some of the other stuff aside, that may be less important, but, build the party based on the Big Tent methodology and the 80% rule. And if we can do that, we can put the knives down, right? Stop the infighting in the party, stop the purity tests, and welcome everybody in that that shares conservative values. That's how we're going to go on and win elections.
I love that. I really love that. All right. Well, thank you for coming on today, and you have a wonderful day. And hi to all of our friends that were at the convention. It was a really nice time to see everyone there, and I wish you all a good weekend.
Absolutely.
So, and hear what you have to say. Yeah, you're welcome to come on anytime. All right.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Awesome. Have a great day, Nick.
You too.
All right. Wonderful. So I'm going to run back over here, and I'm going to bring on our off the grid panel members here, my buddies, Karen, Ralph, and Dr. David. How you guys doing?
Good. How are you?
Oh, doing great. Doing great.
Morning.
Good morning. Ready for some more coffee, quite honestly. So here I go. There's the start of the morning. So, well, what do you guys want to talk about today? This morning coffee on BNN with Off the Grid. We have been considering several things such as heating sources, as well as other things. If the grid goes down, how are you going to rely on yourself and or help provide for people around you in a preparation way? And as everybody knows, I'm a little bit of a prepper. In fact, kind of been a prepper for a very long time, because that's how I grew up. We always put up our own food. We farmed. We lived, we lived off the land. And, if you know those things, it doesn't matter. If the grid goes down, it's just not going to matter to us. We're going to continue to say, okay, I've got, this is the way it was working, but this is the way it's going to work now. And you're prepared enough to switch gears a little bit if you have to, which gives you a lot of peace. And it's not that you're, you want the options and you want the preparations made before things go to hell, not after they go to hell, but before they go to hell, so that you've got a little more control. So what say you guys?
I say it's awful cold out here. It's 25 degrees or something. If the grid goes down, it's going to be a cold one. You're definitely going to want to be prepared.
I can hear Ralph typing in the background. He types like Flint Lockwood, his avatar. Yeah. So let's talk about that a minute. Ralph, why don't you launch into something and then we'll go from there, because there are a lot of ways to prepare for that, even in your house. First off, I'm going to bring up, if the power goes out and your heat source goes out, what is one of the first things you're going to have to deal with? I've got the answer, but let's see if you guys can come up with it.
Where are your candles, and how are you going to light them?
I'd say getting dressed properly right away and figure out where you're going to shelter.
Karen.
I'm thinking.
Okay, so
I agree with the light. If it's in the evening, that's the first thing I do. I also have glow sticks around. Those are really, really easy. You can get those for real cheap at the end of Halloween season too. And I could stick one of those in the bathroom and it'll light the whole room just enough to see without any risk of fire danger. So that's kind of handy.
It's a cool idea.
You can also drop it in a milk carton, or not carton, but a jug, and it'll light up even more. So that's a good way.
I'm having trouble hearing Karen.
Oh, you can't hear Karen?
Is this a little bit better? I'm trying to put the mic.
Oh, that's totally better.
Okay.
There you go. We're down to that.
I got a cheap mic system as an emergency sort of scenario. Because my other one wasn't working properly. So
Nice.
yeah, that's my first one. And then where is my husband to haul the generator out?
Oh, generator.
That would be my second thing probably. And the heat, I think, is the next one.
Okay, so the first thing that I agree with everything you guys have to say, but we're going to add to that a little bit. So the other thing that I would add to it is fill your bathtubs up with water while you can, so that you start that in the process immediately in case there is a water outage and you need things to say like, oh, I don't know, wash clothing or something like that you can hang it out. But you need to have a water source, go to the bathroom, that sort of thing. And then you might have to shut your water off if you lose heat. And that's why I say get things filled up a little bit, whether it's 5-gallon buckets or something like that. But you need to have some water filled up, because you also have to think about turning the water off in the wintertime so you don't freeze your pipes, because that is a catastrophic failure. So that should be in your top 5 actions right there, is deal with if you're frozen, if it freezes for a bit of time, you could have frozen pipes within 12 hours and then they start breaking. Ask me how I know this. I know this. I've been through it years ago, and it's a really broken pipes are a horrific process to recover from once they're there. So you got to think about there. Where's your water shut off so that you can be prepared for that?
Yeah. Good point.
Yeah, I like the glow stick idea. That's a cool idea. Light and heat are both things that we take for granted a lot. And if your heat's out, depending on how your house is constructed, that can be for 1 or 2 or both reasons of electricity being off or gas being off, depending on what you got.
Right.
And there are some things that you can do to heat spaces if you only have one of those things available. If you've got electricity, you can always use space heaters. If you've got gas, a stove is not the most healthy thing to be running in the case of where you have to not have a whole lot of ventilation. But there are fireplaces that can run entirely without electricity, gas fireplaces. And they've been trying to outlaw those because the ones that run without electricity typically use a pilot light. instead of having an electric igniter that just comes on when you flip a switch. So they've been mandating for most new installs now that you have one of the modern ones, for environmental reasons, so you're not burning gas all the time with the pilot light. But that just, make sure that you're also dependent on electricity.
Okay, so what do you think of these glow sticks? I like the ones all the way to the right with a little hook on the top. Is that where you're talking, Karen?
Yeah, I have a couple of different types. There's those little strand ones. It looks like the party sticks one.
Okay.
Second from the left, yeah. They're, I don't know, 6-8 inches long, and really they're like pencil sized or less, and those can light considerably. I like the ones that have a hole at the top, so you can put it on a lanyard, you could put it on a backpack. That was where one of the uses that we had was in a hiking type scenario where you can attach it to your backpack or to your coat on the front.
Yeah, just like in the picture there.
See everybody. Yep. Yeah, so it's got that little hole, so you can attach it to something. Tie a little thread through it or whatever. You can hang it from where you want to. I used it camping too. Hang it right from the top of a tent. And you don't have a lantern, you don't have a battery issue. And I got them for 10 cents at Walmart, a whole bunch of them a few years ago, and they still work. So I keep them right in the on a shelf in the bathroom, easy to reach. I know exactly where they're at, and candles in there too. So really easy to do either one of those two things. And
if you were looking at this list that I just brought up, which ones do you have, or would you? There's green ones. There's multiple colored ones, like multicolored. Like, let's see, where are they? Ta-da! Or which ones would you choose going down the list?
I don't think I would go with rings. I don't know that they're going to be any more effective. They're more of a party kind of thing. So I would, if I was going to get anything, I think the bottom right, and it doesn't really matter what color. You could get a multicolor one. If you've got kids, that might matter for you. Everybody's got their favorite colors.
Okay, so here's 32
just
pieces.
so you can hang them, I like the hole. Because the little skinny ones, like the pencil ones, I would be just laying them somewhere. And they don't have as much. Those look like battery operated ones. Flashy.
Ooh.
I don't think I'd want that in my house.
Well, you give it to the kids, and all of a sudden your house is wrecked because they're like whirling them around like a windmill, right? Okay,
but,
you can have like glasses and such, and I think that sometimes when you go into a situation where it's a little critical or people are in crisis, one of the biggest things is keeping people's morale up.
Yeah, so if you had excuse me, multicolored ones, I mean, like if you've got a pack where you've got yellow and green and red and blue, and you've got 4 kids, that could be a little bit more fun. And then you could challenge them to find places in the house to put them, or just hang around with them. If you have young kids that don't have anything to do, you might like the battery operated ones. If they don't know how to live without their cell phones, they might want to have a little party in the bedroom somewhere. So I don't know. That's know your kids. And I hadn't thought about that because I don't have kids. But how do you keep them occupied in this type of scenario and happy? Hey, I'd go with the multicolored ones if I was shopping. But the hand warmers, you can also get those where you have a foot-shaped ones, the shoe-shaped ones that you can put right into a shoe. Those will last in an outdoor environment for quite some time if you've got good shoes, if you've got good, basic insulating shoes or boots. They make a huge difference if you have to be outside traveling in the cold. The toe warmers, I did not like when I tried those because the adhesive did not stick, and underneath my foot it curled up and bunched, and then I was miserable while I had to hike. And then when I put it on the top of my sock, I adhered it to the top of my sock instead. Maybe it wasn't quite as effective as a heat source, but it did keep my feet warm.
Well, and if you can get the reusable ones like this, kind of in the same vein as a glow stick, you're storing power in a chemical reaction with this. You get the reusable ones like this. If you've got any method of boiling water, then you've got a method of storing some of that heat that you can then release later, because you can just, drop these in the hot water and recharge them. And they stay shelf stable for a very long time in that state until you snap the little button inside, and then they crystallize, and that's what releases the heat. But it's reversible, so you can reuse them over and over.
So that goes back to just being able to make a small fire somewhere. Do you have any dry firewood on hand that you could put in a place in your yard and start that up? One of the things you can do with that is if you have rocks around, you can put rocks in and around the fire, and then let's just say you throw it in a clay pot of some sort. You can create a little heater out of throwing heated rocks or really hot rocks. Just make sure you have something to pick them out of the fire with so that you don't burn your hands or anything like that. Drop them in a clay pot and set them around your house. And then you could throw the rocks back into your fire and use it that way. But it takes a little bit of prep work to do that. And you can also boil water for that and do the rechargeable one. So a little bit of firewood on hand. Consider it a camping experience. Have some marshmallows and chocolate bars and graham crackers and turn it into time.
And do you have something to light it with?
I was going to say the rock thing too, because I'm still working my way through some Little House on the Prairie. I read a couple of chapters here and there, and those books by Laura Ingalls Wilder are really great, but they are also very informative on what they used to do. And one day we were driving through some snow, and I told my husband, I said, can you imagine handling this road? It was like a gravel, rough road. I said, with a wagon or a bobsled. And in some places it's melty, and in some places it's snowy, and how comfortable would that be? And in those days, they heated up rocks and put them at their feet and then covered everybody with blankets. And that's how they handled going to church. And it might be a few miles away with a horse leading them through the snow. So that's a very reasonable way. And I was going to add to what Donna said, we are going to get some higher temperatures on Monday. So if this is something that sounds like a reasonable thing to consider in your West Michigan circumstances, you might want to look for some rocks while the snow is melting away, because you're gonna want some sizable rocks that maybe have some porosity to them so they can absorb some heat and then release it. And you're not gonna want to be digging through hard packed snow for rocks or bricks or something. I know where the bricks are in my yard, and I tend to stack them up in the fall so that I can use them to weigh down tarps or whatever it is in the wintertime.
That's a good thing. You know what I've been looking into lately is the used billboard vinyl. You can buy used billboard vinyl and use those as tarps. So like if you have the ability to create, say like a wigwam style structure out there, which really isn't that difficult to do if you've got some zip ties and you can quickly go out there and cut some, if you've got some land, of course, and you've got some ability to cut some let's say bendy undergrowth type growth, and or like a willowy type a willow of some sort. You can bend those around, use zip ties to create your uprights and then your purlins across the side, zip tie them together, throw a tarp over the top of it, and then you can build a fire on the inside and allow that to the where you allow the smoke to escape and keep it pretty warm in there. So there you go.
There you go.
Yeah,
Question.
so for fires too, another thing that you might want to consider is how are you going to start a fire? Because are you really going to want to be out there with 2 sticks for a long time? If there's no power, do you have something to light it with?
Exactly.
Ooh, you know what I like? Okay, like a propane tank and a weed burner. I use those things all the time. You can torch one of those things off and start just about anything on fire with that.
Yep.
You look like a pyrocyclopath when you're using it, though, to burn off your weeds around your garden, but it works really well.
Yep.
So I have a question. The carbon monoxide detectors, this was something that they put out on the quote-unquote news a little while ago. A few days ago, they were talking about fire hazards and other health hazards in this kind of weather. They have to remind everybody about this during the wintertime too, and because we're all stupid. Those carbon monoxide detectors, are they operated by battery or are they operated by a plug in the wall? Because if they rely on electricity, your electricity is out. You plug in a generator too close to your house, and now you have a carbon monoxide problem, but you don't have a powered alarm system.
Good point. Good point.
There's other things you can do too. Is you can create little stoves out of, say, a number 10 can, and that's another way to heat things up. And you can actually cook on that pretty easily if you don't have anything around. Dump the contents out and then heat it within making a heater in the number 10 can. You just got to remember you got to have an air exchange in there and get it enough away from your building. You don't want to do this in your house. So if you're lucky enough to have a fireplace, that's a good thing, and know how to use it. But if not, then you can use it also outside to heat things up that you need. That's a pretty effective way to do that too.
And Kidda makes a combination carbon monoxide and combustible gas alarm that is both plug-in and has a 9-volt battery backup, so that if the power goes out, you can run it for quite a while. Now, that only catches carbon monoxide and combustible gases. You can also get CO2 meters like that will show you, because even if you have a perfectly, that one's currently unavailable, it looks like, but even if you, something like that to detect CO2, if you have any kind of a fire and it's a real clean burning fire in your house, or even if you've got your house incredibly well sealed up and you've just got a bunch of people in it or in a small room, you can also build up CO2 fairly quickly. It's not as harmful, but you can start getting headaches and that sort of thing if you don't have the air exchange.
Mm-hmm.
And how do I know about this question? Because apparently one of us unplugged one and it didn't have a battery backup, or the battery was worn out. The alarm went off, and one of the dogs was jumping all over me in a panic. And that's why I'm using a cheap microphone, because every little tiny squeaky sound makes him go into a panic now, and he can't handle any kind of feedback, which happens occasionally, apparently.
Nice.
So, crazy.
So what? Let's go off of heat now. So we've gotten that, because we haven't done off the grid in a lot of weeks. We've been getting on talking about the news and such. So I do think that it's important to go through some of this stuff. And I gotta see where my books are. I've got all kinds of like survival books, because that's something I really enjoy. But there's a lot of processes that we need to think about, because I'm going to go back to the fact that we have 12 critical substations across the United States. And if for some reason they hit, somebody decides to attack 9 of them, we are in the dark, and it's going to be a long time, because we've never come back to a black start or a dark start. So this is one of those things that in the worst scenario, it could be more than a couple of days or a couple of weeks. It could be months or it potentially years to get some of this if it's fried. So we really need to think about, how do you live? And the Amish are a really good example of how to do things also that don't require electricity, or if they do, they get it off of steam, or they get it off of some other independent generators. So they're geared up.
Yeah, and if you do have a generator, that's one really nice thing about electricity, is that there's a lot of ways of producing electricity yourself which don't require the grid. You can use a generator, which is also somewhat dependent on having a fuel source, which that may be a problem. If you have an extended outage, you may not, they may not be able to run the pumps at gas stations. So that you're still kind of dependent on an external input with a generator. It's a good medium term solution. Solar power in the winter in Michigan isn't great, but it at least produces something. That doesn't require any inputs at all from the grid, and you can do that entirely yourself. Same with if you're in a good spot that's appropriate for a wind powered generator, you can put some of those up yourself, and they make a bunch of those for home use. That Michigan, we get plenty of wind, especially if you're out toward the lakeshore, or if you're out in farmland where the wind can come barreling across the mowed down farms for the winter. Cornfields, there's nothing there. There's plenty of wind. You can use that. If you're by a water source, you can get water turbines. There's all kinds of ways of making electricity yourself, independent of any other systems, that you can use for long periods of time. And if you can build some of your infrastructure around rechargeable things that you can attach to that, it gives you a lot of options.
Yeah.
Hand crank radios, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Hand crank radios. You can get electrically rechargeable hand warmers. There's a whole bunch of those on that you can order online. They're not stocked terribly frequently from what I've seen at local stores, but USB rechargeable hand warmers, USB rechargeable flashlights, the hand cranked radios, a bunch of those you can get now that have rechargeable batteries inside, where you can charge them off of USB, or you can charge them off of hand cranking it. And in some cases, you can, they only take like AA's or something like that. Get some rechargeable AA's and a charger for them. Then you can convert a whole bunch of your equipment that you probably already have to being rechargeable and being something that you could run off of an alternative energy source if you needed to. And if you've got enough electricity, you can always use that for space heaters. You can use that for water pumps. You can use that for all kinds of different stuff.
Something every house should have is one of those NOAA wind-up radios, because if the power goes out, you're going to be really wondering what the heck is going on. And I assume the cell phones won't work. And just to have a sense of what's happening and what if there's any plans or how long it's going to last, having one of those radios is indispensable, and they're cheap. They're very inexpensive.
And ideally, it's that's even useful, even not in an emergency situation, because you can monitor for other weather conditions just normally. And everyone should also have an AM radio as part of that, because there is a lot of infrastructure, particularly in the United States. Boy, that looks like a nice one.
Yeah.
There's a lot of infrastructure in the United States for keeping the AM radio system up and running. AM is kind of special in that regard, in that it takes very, very few AM towers to be able to cover the entire United States. You can't really do it with FM. FM is a little shorter range. And so we've got a large amount of infrastructure built around the AM radio system to be able to do emergency communications over that. That's one of the reasons why it really bugs me that a whole bunch of the electric car manufacturers now are trying to drop AM radio from their cars because, oh, it's obsolete and nobody in Europe uses it. It's all FM radio and the sound quality is better on FM. And it's a pain for us to provide AM radios because there's so much interference from the electrical systems in the drive motors.
Yeah.
But that AM radio system is built out very well, actually, as an emergency communications system. And while they can use FM for that in Europe a lot better because things are a lot more compact, geographically, the United States is so spread out that AM is about the only thing that actually works.
Well, and it's really concerning when you see the ability or the predisposition to them to want to take over the radio frequencies. Right now, they're trying to pull that away from the public being able to have access to that, which tells me this is another one of those things that they're doing asset capture on to take it out of the hands of us, and we have to pay them. We got to pay the piper in order to use those things because they're trying to control everything.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's all communications,
food. I mean, you name it. They're absolutely trying to control it. So if they can use a regulatory capture agency or something like that to pull it out of where the public has access to it, they're going to try. That's why the AM they're trying to throttle that, in my opinion. This is really interesting. This particular radio. Check this out. Look at the size right there. They've got the size there, 3 inches by 2 inches by 6.5 inches. You could throw that thing in a pocket. Remember when they first came out with the hand crank radios like 30 years ago? We had one like 30 years ago, and they were huge, for you to crank them and get them going. I mean, you weren't like going to have this on a march somewhere or a hike. Not going to happen because it's going to take up the majority of your weight bearing capacity. But to see this is amazing. And it's got a radio involved in it. It's totally amazing. Cell phone charger, reading lamp, $39. This is amazing.
Yeah, I would get one of those.
Well, boys, you know what I'm going to do like right now as we're on the phone.
Great Christmas gifts.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true because there's, for all of this stuff, you may be prepared, but any of this stuff that you have for preparation work probably would be great Christmas presents for the people around you.
Yeah.
Is that like a hint there, Ralph? we're like all friends, right? So, wow, this would be a great Christmas present.
Well, particularly for the people that are very bad at being prepared themselves. Might be a great thing for them.
It's scary, though, to think how many people are not prepared for anything, just are completely clueless.
Well, that brings up another great point. Especially if you live in suburbia or in a city and you want to be prepared, and let's say you are at least fairly prepared for these kinds of circumstances, anyone around you who isn't is going to see you are the one without a panic, and they are going to want the resources that you have, and are you going to be capable of defending them? And I keep saying it might sound strange, but if you haven't watched the first season or two of The Walking Dead, you might miss out on those lessons, because all of these things are a part of that show where they show you, you don't just hear about it, they show you there is no gas. The cars are few and far between because there's no gas. So transportation is rare. And well, then all of a sudden horses become important, but horses can be eaten by zombies or in our case, people who might be really hungry.
Oh, yeah.
So then if you keep horses, that becomes a source of meat for people who are really hungry and not prepared. How are you going to defend your resources?
You're going to have so much firepower that they're going to be afraid to come within 5 miles of you. That's what it is.
Well, in Michigan, I think our state is I don't know compared to other states, but I think we're fairly well armed compared to other states.
Oh,
We
yeah.
just don't brag on it. We're not used to seeing people open carry like in Texas, so people tend to panic when they do see that in the public eye, especially around the Capitol building. But when when there are a lot of people who are well equipped. Now, well trained might be different.
Yeah.
Because I have seen, in fact, even just like with the story of the CEO, he got shot in the ankle or something.
In the ankle.
It was somebody, he was shot low and high. So this is somebody who's supposed to be an assassin, who's prepared. He's right up on the guy, and he still misses that poorly. I have seen, because I have trained with them, law enforcement officers that shoot quote unquote victims on the ground while they're aiming at the bad guy who is still standing. So if you are not well trained, your aim may not be very good.
With
The
the
people who
shotgun.
are
That
trained,
is like, did you ever hear the story? And I think it was G. Gordon Liddy, who somebody did a home invasion, and his wife pulled out a shotgun, and she sat there and she said, you know, gave him warning. Said, and her kids were standing there, and she's like, stop or I'm gonna shoot. She gave him 2 warnings: stop or I'm gonna shoot. And then she looked at her kids on the third one. The guy kept going. She said, watch mommy blow the bad man's head off, kids. Kind of a shaky person with a gun can be a little intimidating too. I mean, because
Yeah. True.
it's like they don't even have to be well trained, because you look at that and it's like, oh my gosh, get me away from the crazy person. They're capable of anything.
Yeah.
now this is true, but I wouldn't want to rely on my acting skills during adrenaline self-defense situation. I have, but this is another thing where, like in a self-defense class, if you prepare yourself for various scenarios, what happens if a drunk guy gets in your house? He's just drunk and stupid. He doesn't necessarily deserve to die. If you shoot first without giving him a warning, then you're a murderer. Was he trespassing and potentially a threat? Yeah. But there's a line there where you have a responsibility to use your weapon wisely and safely and reasonably. And so, are you prepared for someone who is vicious and intending to hurt you and your family versus somebody who stumbles in the wrong house? Those kinds of scenarios, if you haven't thought them through, you're not going to be as reliable and calm and peaceful in your thinking process when your adrenaline is hot, man. When you're under a lot of pressure, most people just crack and break. And I know this even from training when I was in a Red Cross first aid teaching. Years ago, I was part of a class where I was going to be certified in teaching first aid CPR. And my instructor didn't just sit in a classroom and teach us things and quiz us and whatever, and now we're certified. She created scenarios. She said, down the hallway is a room with a scenario. Now go. And I quickly found myself in the front of a group of people working down the hallway because they hesitated to even move toward a scenario. They were that intimidated. And when we got there, there was a blue sheet on the floor representing water. And the first thing we were supposed to notice was you could be electrified. You have to observe scene safety. If you see your loved one on the floor, are you observing scene safety? Is there a bad guy in there? Is there an electrical situation you need to be concerned about? Is it a CO2 situation? What kind of scenario are you dealing with? You don't just rush into an accident on the highway if there's a flammable truck. You call that sign in and say, what does this sign mean? How far should we be evacuating, in what direction? You have to be aware. and thinking straight. And if you're prepared for, okay, what happens if I hear a noise at this door in my house and I'm in that room? Which direction do I go? Why? And what do I do next? Where is my cell phone while I'm in my house at this time of day or night? Those things can be really important to prepare you for having a calmer state of mind, because you go, oh, I've thought this through, I got this. And then when you say with authority to someone getting in your house or on your property, you need to leave, you don't have to shoot somebody. We always easily go to, well, I'm armed and I know how to use it. Well, are you? Because it starts with not using it.
Well, I tell you, my dad, when he got dementia, there was a point in time where he had wandered out. They were still living in my mom and dad's house, and my dad wandered out of the house in the middle of the night, and it was cold out. And he told me the story later because he didn't even realize that he was out there, and they kind of came to a little bit later because it's a process when people get dementia. So he ended up walking around in the woods and the orchards and such. And finally he said he kind of realized that he was not at home, but he didn't realize where he was. He didn't recognize anything. So he said he saw a car and there was a house there, and he went and he knocked on the door in the middle of the night. Right. And, I'm pretty sure he was just wearing his socks and his jammies, that sort of thing. I mean, talk about being freaked out about somebody that's in trouble. He knocked on the door, nobody came. He checked the door and he walked in.
Yeah.
And the gal that there's an older married couple that was there, and the woman heard something and came downstairs, and there's my dad standing in the house. She's freaking out, screaming. Her husband came down, and he had a cool head about it. He came down, took a look at my dad, and he said, "Hey, Vern, what you doing here?" and Dad said he remembered saying, "I don't know who I am. I don't know where I am." And he said, I don't know anything. And I mean, totally disoriented, which can really be, of an ability not to freak out, but to keep a cool head in every situation. Now, if there's a clear and present threat, you have the right to defend your property. But realize there's some implications to that also. I'm a CPL holder and such. So if you don't know the law on this subject, you need to learn it and such. Some of us believe that we should have stand your ground rules, that if somebody comes on your property to threaten you, and I believe that we should have that constitutional carry and stand your ground rules in order to protect our homes. We're sovereign here. However, the way that the rules are in the court systems now, which is a complete crap show out there, you have some risks on your actions no matter what. And are you willing to take those risks? Is it better to approach it with a calm and cool head and really assess whether there's a threat or something? Because somebody who was in a panic mode certainly could have shot my dad on the spot, and to that point of being able to assess the situation around you, but they turned into a very helpful thing and realized, oh my goodness, he's got a real problem right now. Put him in the car and brought him home, and Mom thawed him out and put him in a warm bath and thawed him out and such. And he could have easily died out in the exposure. So with that said, I mean, to look at that sort of thing and realize that in a bad situation where the heat or the electricity is out, you have to quickly assess on whether the people that are coming to you are coming for help or harm.
Yeah.
And I would say that's a wonderful story.
Yeah.
But I think another thing too to think about is in a situation like that, where you potentially might have to defend a stockpile of resources, you may also want to think about possibly distributing some of those resources around to also trusted people in your community so that there is not one single point that has to be defended. Because if one of those stockpile locations goes down and you have a network built up where one of them gets taken over and raided or something like that. If you have a network built up beforehand with stuff distributed around to trusted people in your community, you may end up having to also rely on them to retrieve some of your own stockpiles that you've distributed to them. If you can kind of cooperate with a few people so that it's not one single point to try and defend, then you all kind of have a better chance of being able to pull through it and not even have to defend any of them, because it's not quite as high of a resource target for somebody to go after.
Well, and think about this. I mean, when Jesus fed the population with loaves and fish, I do believe the first thing is to fall on your knees and pray to God for help, and have him lead us through what we could be facing in all situations. Seek the Lord's will on everything, and he does provide, but that doesn't mean that you're stupid either. He also gives us resources to manage, which I think is an important thing. Going back to what you just said, Ralph, is that knowing the people around you and their skill sets also. We have become so dysfunctional and disjointed since the COVID nonsense, which was attack on American soil, that quite honestly, we need to know the people around us, what their needs are, as well as what their skill sets are. So like, of course, we have friends that are doctors and such. Thank you, Dr. David. As well as people who can do quite a bit of survival, that are very knowledgeable in survival, or that are very knowledgeable in, let's just say, creating things out of nothing. Can they machine things out? Are they able to MacGyver their way through things, and do they have an experience in having to MacGyver their way to get out of bad situations?
That Ralph guy.
That Ralph guy.
Yeah, everyone should know a welder, for one thing. And there's so many things that need to be repaired on a regular basis, that just even to keep machinery up, that you really, like you said, you should have somebody that can machine things. You should have somebody that can weld things. You should have somebody that knows how to do woodworking, all of that kind of stuff.
Someone that knows chemicals, as well as hazmat, things that are hazardous materials. You really should have somebody that's got a good grasp on that, because somebody could think, okay, I'm going to mix ammonia and bleach as a cleaner. Wrong. Bad plan. Even something that looks natural, that is like that, you can kill yourself with those kind of compounds.
Yeah. And
I want to show you a lost and found thing, if you can see it. I found this last week.
Oh, fun.
Very cool.
It's a real arrowhead.
Oh, that's fun.
Is that neat?
Yes.
Very cool. Well, and like something to think about too is, if you have a freeze dryer, maybe it would be a good idea to take some of that, take some of the output of that, and maybe that would be a great Christmas present to give to maybe neighbors or cousins or something like that, and just tell them, this is one of the greatest emergency supplies that you could have. This will stay good for years and years and years. Store this. Don't use it right away, but store it, and have other people that are around you that may be able to equip themselves in an emergency situation. You don't want to be the only one that's equipped for an emergency situation, because, like Karen said, that makes you a heck of a target. If you can get everyone else around you so that they're also at least minimally prepared, then it doesn't really matter quite as much that you're the only one that's prepared, because you're not. It may not even come to the point of where you would have to defend yourself, because there's so many of you that are already prepared, that are already going to have to defend themselves as well, that now you've got an entire community that's able, willing, and kind of required to run on defense. It's not just you. You're not just standing alone at that point.
And alternately, know who in your area is going to be the opposite. Because if you've got some people you approach or that you just know, they don't care about other people.
Yeah.
And especially if you know that they're armed, they're the type of people who are shooting at night and just basically disrespecting their neighbors in every way. They're going to be the ones that you need to avoid and be aware of where they are and what they're up to. They may be the people who would come after you for your resources. So
I
you
had a guy
identify
at
those too.
Yeah, I had a guy at the Republican National Convention over there in Wisconsin that I sat down with, very well off kind of a guy, and we were talking about the subjects, and I was shocked to my core at what he said. He said, if the grid goes down, I'm just going to go get out there and take whatever I want. This is someone who is a Republican.
Really?
That literally, yep. And so you can't believe the labels, because in bad situations, you're going to see the real person come out. But his whole demeanor was, I'll just take whatever I need if things melt down. You know what? That is a despicable attitude. There's no excuse for that. And if we prepare ahead of time to know that, okay, I've got not only myself, maybe my family and some friends that I don't want to see die if the grid goes down. So I'm going to put time into the fact that I'm going to prepare enough that we have something that can get us through, say, maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, and maybe more. Maybe you have the idea of doing more than that. Some non-perishable food is a great idea that you can just pop the top off of cans. And then if you don't use it within like 6 months or whatever, donate it. It's cheap insurance. And you can, if you're not using it, donate it or give it to somebody else who could use it. What a great way to serve the community and or the people around us. Maybe there's things that have like a year or more expiration date. If we prepare ahead, we can help equip our communities.
Donna, just a quick question, or Karen or Ralph, does canned food ever go bad? Like it'll make you sick if it doesn't have a hole in it to get to the oxygen?
It can. It depends on how they're stored. So like some things, if they're stored in a non-climate controlled area, they're gonna go bad quickly. The cans can rust. If you've got any scratch in the cans that breaks the seals or the coatings that they put on them, yes, absolutely. It's not indefinite.
So not go bad. I don't mean bad as far as the taste. I mean bad as far as having bacteria in it.
That's what I'm talking about. If there's a breach in the can, you have to watch that. Even if it's canned goods, no matter whether it's new or old or anything like that, you should always pay attention to that. So let's just say you've got a can of can of corn or a can of soup, and it's got meat in it and such, and you put your can opener on it, and all of a sudden, instead of it sucking in air, it spits out. You've got botulism, and that is an unrecoverable can. Throw it out and disinfect everything that's been around that, including the can opener, your hands, the counter, whatever it may be, because that is a threat. And unfortunately, there's not been enough interaction between real adults and parents and children in our society anymore. You may have people all around you that don't know what kind of a threat that is. That is actually a death threat right there. You can die from that.
Or it might just be your emergency supply of.
Morning, Chris.
Hey, good morning.
Go ahead. I'm going to invite people on as they come on.
Or those bad cans might just be your emergency supply of Botox.
Well,
Could be.
Or if that bad neighbor comes around and demands food, hey,
here's your food.
The only time,
wrong.
the only time I've ever seen
People,
Donna.
they're not right.
But I was also going to say, besides the person who has really bad intentions, there's a number of movies that I could think of. So sat and thought about it for a minute. A number of depictions where being around. The Quiet Place 2 is a good one. The second movie. Well, Day One, I think it's called, something like that. Anyway, so this is an alien attack in a city. What was it like on the first day? Well, people eventually realized that it was sound that lured them to you. If you were quiet, they would not find and eat you. But if you made a single peep, if you scraped your foot on the ground, they were going to kill you. And there were a lot of them. So what did the people do? They all get together in a group. And I'm thinking, well, that's dumb. Because you got kids in there. You have very upset people who are not cool and calm and collected. And the first thing they do in an emergency, when they hear a creature outside the door, they're going to go, ah! And you're all dead. You're all dead.
Thanks
Stay
for that
away from stupid people.
Thank you for that uplifting moment by Karen the Riveter. Chris,
So the lesson is stay away from stupid people. And really, I mean, there is that element again from Walking Dead. It's there too. Stay away from stupid people who are not going to react well in an emergency because they cause you to be less safe.
Chris, what were you going to say?
No comment.
I had another thought for another thing that we probably ought to talk about based on a conversation that Donna and I had earlier this week, and that is socks. I think you know something about socks.
Yeah, hang on. I'm gonna get
talking
something.
to me, Ralph? Are you talking to me?
Yeah, we're gonna bring this into the conversation. This is gonna be great. Okay, hold on. I'll be right
Chris is
back.
gonna whip off his socks and show us now.
Yeah, no, we had a talk at length about socks several days ago, particularly pertaining to emergency situations.
That sounds totally normal.
Yeah,
I would hang with you guys in an emergency because you're not stupid.
Hey, Karen. Hey,
Yes.
Karen. We could even use those socks for the people that we think are screamers. Just make the opening a little bit bigger.
Well, there's the saying, stuff a sock in it for a reason, I suppose, huh?
Hey, yeah, you could do that too. I
All
was
right.
thinking of the hood.
All right, so I'm going to show you this. So I'm sitting here going, what would you need if things melt down? And I'm like, socks, right? You're going to need socks. You're going to need dry, nice, warm feeties, right? So I decided, I used to knit a little bit. So I decided what I was going to do is start knitting back up. So this is what I mastered this week. It's a 5 needle knitting in the round so you can knit socks. And so not only, this is a little complicated for people that have never knitted before. I did when I was younger, some, but it's been years since I picked it up. So at any rate, this is my week's project here, is learning how to do a 5 needle knitting project and knit in the round. So there you go. There's a skill to pick up. So the next thing for Donna Brandenburg is to get a few sheep or alpaca so that I can actually produce my own fibers. Isn't that cool? Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Funny thing is I went through kind of a similar pattern of thought a few years ago of, I should learn how to knit socks. So I tried to pick up knitting, more or less figured out how to do it, realized I suck at this so bad that I would wear out socks faster than I could make new socks. And so I actually ended up buying a World War I era circular sock knitting machine.
Because as you do.
Yeah.
As you do.
Because this was also a problem during World War I. They had such a big problem with trench foot that because they couldn't produce socks of sufficient quality fast enough to be able to deploy to the troops. So in both the United States and Canada, and I believe also in England and possibly in France, there was a major drive to build circular sock knitting machines and deploy them to mainly housewives that were home from the war. And they would give you a circular sock knitting machine on the condition that you produced X number of socks of sufficient quality for the Army. And once you produced that number of socks, the machine was yours free and clear, and you could continue making socks for the Army, or you could make them for your own family or for your community or whatever. But
yeah,
they made a lot of those machines, and
can I say something right now? Because I think this is like an important thing to throw out there in front of everybody. Welcome to Nerdville, everyone. This is like Nerdville, Nerd Center here on BNN, where we talk about everything. Welcome to Nerdville. Morning, Melissa. You just came into the middle of Nerdville Center here.
I'm in the right place. Good morning, Donna.
Good morning. Okay, hang on a minute. I'm gonna.
Dr. Kent's out of here.
Well, you don't really think too much either about socks being part of military history, but they were actually kind of a critical component of health of soldiers especially during World War I, because that was a major problem.
Trench foot. Yeah.
Yep.
and back in George Washington's day, they didn't have socks toward the end. They had to wrap their feet with cloth and stuff because they were so infected and cut with cuts and infections and whatnot. Yeah, it's a very important tool of the military. I will tell you this too, that what you said, Ralph, brings to mind the innovation that started the independence of the United States of America. In other words, us building our own things, us figuring out how to accomplish and overcome difficulties like keeping our feet warm, creating steel, creating transportation, creating our own food without government intrusion. The medicines that we used to use were more holistic than they were coming through a government agency. So these are the things that I see that you basically touched on the foundation of what we as Americans need to get back to.
Yeah, okay. So I'm going to bring this in here a minute. Hang on, so that you guys can see how cool sock making is. This is cool. Okay, so I'm going to see how quickly. Maybe I can make it go faster. Let's see where it's going.
Super cool in Nerdville.
Yeah, welcome to Nerdville here, people. This is like serious Nerdville stuff. Okay, I'm going to make this go like really fast. Okay, it's going to be great. Here we go.
When you go, take my coat with you when it snows. I'll stay wrapped around your shoulders when you drink. Raise your glass to me, and you can think about the inconvenient ways the days we pass between you. And if you sing my songs. Cause if you sing anyone else's, you won't think of me for nearly as long as I live. I'll always find your socks in my bed. My bed, socks in my bed, my bed, my bed. I always find socks in my bed. My bed, I always find socks in my bed.
Yeah, you can turn out a pair of socks fairly quickly with a circular sock knitting machine.
Take a pair of my gold toes and wash them with your laundry, and I'll use them when we sleep on the roof.
Okay, so now we all know how this works. I was going to put the cuff onto the pre-heel. All right, there you go. So that's a circular sock knitting machine. Now, isn't that cool? I mean, I think that's just neat.
Or we could give you that job, Donna.
I would take that job. Okay,
love that.
I would think that was cool. I mean, it doesn't take much for me. I like shoveling horse manure, so I mean, it's all good.
Well, shoes are even more important than socks in a lot of different survival situations. I think it protecting your feet if you're in the woods, in the cold, in the jungle. A lot of people die making that trek through, from South America trying to get into the United States, that Darien Gap, because they don't have proper shoes and their feet get infected, and they're walking through jungle and needles and things in the ground, and they die from infected feet.
Yep. Absolutely.
And
You want to make a
we've
good living?
definitely had
Open
a
a
lot of-
shoe store in the middle of the Darien Gap.
We've definitely had a lot of discussions on how to make shoes and variety of situations on this show. So for reference, go back to all of the Friday shows.
Yeah.
and other shows.
That's another thing to be wonderfully obsessed about it. Here, we're gonna do that because that's also fun. So I'm gonna play another one, and we're gonna make this puppy go fast, okay? And so we can like hit the
Liberty Mutual customized my
of
car
course
insurance.
we gotta
so I
have our
save
ads
out.
on here. Hang on, let's see if we can get this thing going without having to listen to blah 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 blah. Okay. Bear with me. This is real news for real people by real people at the kitchen table, sort of. Let's see. And we are 2 times the speed, so let's see what happens here, guys.
In between, there's a simple formula to making a shoe, and I thought I would run through it with you now. First of all, you need a pair of shoemaking lasts. Now, shoemaking lasts come in lots of different shapes and sizes, but ultimately they determine the size of the shoe, the heel height of the shoe, and the toe shape of the shoe. The last is basically the equivalent of a dressmaker's mannequin, so before you start your project, you will need to first pick out the appropriate pair of lasts. Once you've got your lasts, you'll need what we call an upper. So whether it's a front boot, a loafer, a lace-up derby, a sandal, whatever it may be, it needs an upper. Now, this upper needs to wrap around the last and attach to the insole board. Now, depending on what type of shoe you're making, you may have a flat insole, a mid-height insole, or a high heel insole. It doesn't matter really which insole you have, as long as it matches the pitch of your last. Once you wrap your upper around the insole, depending again on the style of shoe that you're making, you may need to add in some stiffeners. These help the shoes to keep the shape of the last, so that once you take the last out, the shoe maintains its shape. If you're making a strappy sandal or an open-toed shoe, more often than not, you just won't need stiffeners at all. So once you've wrapped your upper around the last, attached it to the bottom of the insole, inserted your stiffeners if you need them, you'll need to create a nice flat surface on the base to attach your sole to. The sole is pretty self-explanatory. It's what goes on the base of the shoe and hits the ground when you walk. Now, if you're creating a flat shoe, you may want to build up a little heel tip on that sole just to give you a little bit of lift off the ground. And if you're doing a heel shoe, at this point, you would attach your heel. Now, the heel gets drilled in through the insole board, and that's what attaches it to the main body of the shoe. So that brings us to our final piece, and that's the insole sock. Now, the insole sock goes on the inside of the shoe and covers up any screw holes that we might have from drilling in heels. It's also a great opportunity to add some foam to the inside of the shoes to make sure they're extra comfy. And that's pretty much it. Each and every different type of shoe has a lot more steps to it, but they are all made up of the same core instruction.
There you go. So I don't. Yeah, that's pretty simple. But if you look at bespoke shoes and where they actually hand make shoes, it's kind of a cool process, actually.
That is cool.
I spent a lot of time outdoors this year, and I have these sandals that are really broad, and between that and going barefoot, my feet got more expanded, and which is good. I have bunions in both feet too, so I couldn't stand it then when I had to start wearing shoes more often with my tighter socks and the tighter. My feet didn't like it. And I said, okay, maybe I should look into this concept of the natural shoe, the zero drop, the wide feet. And so right now I'm wearing a new pair. I'm trying one out for the winter. I'm just wearing inside. And I also got a heel lift in one shoe, so that's underneath it too. But they're wider around the toes, the toe box. But they have zero lift inside, so there is no heel lift like she was suggesting in the video. And this is more natural. You're supposed to be closer to the ground, and it's supposed to be a lot healthier for you in general, but switching over to this type of shoe can take a lot of time, especially if, like me, your arches aren't the greatest. You need to take the time to do it. So that's why I'm just around the house. I'm trying this out, and so far I haven't had too much of a problem with it. I have had plantar fasciitis in my history. You know, Ralph and I have talked about that too. It's a painful thing. You don't want to have to deal with that. So I'm taking my time with it, but eventually I would like to have some outdoor shoes that are closer to the ground and zero drop as well. But the wide toe box has been great.
There
You
you
might
go.
maybe look into the 5-finger shoes where it's got the individual toes. I've got some of those. I've used them for years. And when you first get those, you do have to kind of ease into them and don't go whole hog on them. You know, if you're used to running, don't start running in them, because it takes a completely different set of musculature, and you can very easily injure your feet switching to them too fast. But once you start using them more, it's a phenomenal stretch for all of the muscles in your feet, and it kind of builds a whole bunch of little stabilizer muscles between your toes. They're really quite nice.
All right, guys. Well, I tell you what, let's thank you for coming on this morning, everybody. I think I'm going to move to the citizen journalist portion of the show here. If you want to stay on, you're fine to do that, but I'm going to take a real quick break, and we'll be back with our investigative citizen journalists. And so give me about 30 seconds here. Good morning and welcome to the third part of Brandenburg News Network this morning. I am Donna Brandenburg, and excuse me, welcome to our show today. We're going to move right into the investigative journalist panel and guests. How you guys doing?
Hey,
Right.
hey.
Good.
Good. How's that baby doing, Melissa?
Oh, she's great. I'm home now after spending over 3 weeks there, and getting steady calls from my daughter, but trying to get back in the swing of things.
Is that her first baby?
Yes, my first grandbaby. So
Congratulations.
thank you. It has been an amazing journey so far. I tell you what, this one is going to be just like her Amma, just like me.
Your daughter looks like you too.
We have strong genes. I've said that many. I'm genetically dominant. I'm just going to say that in my nerd voice.
Yeah, that you. As soon as you started sending me the pictures, I'm like, "What did you do? Like rubber stamp yourself?" She looks exactly like you. It's amazing, carbon copy of Mama. So, where do we want to go today, guys? We had all kinds of things in the news. I was looking at the earthquake out west, and somebody's got an echo there. I'm listening to like a news feed.
TV.
It's the TV. All right, I'm gonna see where it's coming from. Let's see. There you go. It's Chris's. Chris, you got a TV on the background. So let's see if I can.
No, it's gone.
There you go. It's better. Poof. There you go. So what were your thoughts on the earthquake and some of the other nonsense that we're seeing out there in the world today? And what are you working on? I know, Melissa, you're working on a whole bunch of stuff out there, cases as well as legal proceedings on holding people accountable.
Yeah, so I'll tell you, on the earthquake, I just jumped into that one last night, and I saw that when the tsunami warnings were coming across, and so I didn't really get into that one. By the time I got into it, the tsunami warning had ended, but it looks like it looks quite odd to me, the depth, the location, the intensity of it. Nothing makes sense right now on that. So on the other side,
half mile deep, and it's underwater. It's like, that does not make a lot of sense to me either. And then the severity of it should be also kind of questioned a little bit. Was odd.
Is there a fault line there?
Yes,
There is.
or an underground tunnel.
Yeah.
Ooh,
I've actually seen in some of the stuff I've done. I haven't really done the deep dive on all the underground tunnels, but we know that, what's her name? The one that Epstein's right-hand lady, I can't even think of her name right now.
Ghislaine Maxwell.
Yeah. So, she was a submarine pilot. So you have to question, I look at things like this, these crazy things that happen underwater in odd areas. And, I'm thinking it has to do with things that have not yet been brought to light.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's something that we need to question everything, certainly.
Yeah.
So, to everybody that's out there that sustained damage and such, they're in our prayers, and whenever we see stuff like this, there's always a human cost involved that we can't forget.
You always have to keep in mind too that our media is completely controlled. So there's always a reason why they show you something or don't show you stuff. And you have to think about what it is, why they're showing you something, because they can control what we know and what we don't know.
And create trauma to get people to do stupid
Maybe that's
stuff.
the reason. Yeah.
Yeah, it's an injection of fear. Takes your eyes off of what's really going on.
Yeah.
So the goal is just to maintain calmness. I mean, I think this is what this entire show has been around, is like maintaining your sense of calm in the presence of crisis. It's kind of been repeated all morning.
I sure wish we knew what was going on.
It's going to be okay. How's that? So just keep walking. It's going to be okay. God leads us through everything, and you don't have to, nobody has to melt down. And it's a good skill to have. And then not believe anything you see, really go. What I do know, since we've been trying to expand into TikTok a little bit, is that even that is regionalized. And just so everybody knows, TikTok is now being run out of Texas. So the things that we've been told, I got a feeling that a lot of the media has actually already been moved around. And it looks like Elon Musk is poised to buy YouTube, which is going to change the censorship algorithms radically. Except I'm still getting censored on X once in a while when I put truth out there that's a little bit too raw for everybody to sustain. But we'll have to watch how this lands.
Yeah, I noticed that free speech is still being kind of tampered with on X. Absolutely.
Well, Jonathan Cagle lost an account, and this was after Elon took it over, which makes me wonder what's going on there. He's pretty hard hitting. I love Jonathan. He's one of my favorite researchers out there, and he doesn't pull any punches whatsoever. He's out there just a swinging away. And he lost an account. He came back on a backup account, but his research is pretty damning to the bad guys, and he connects all the dots. I mean, he goes through J.D. Vance, Peter Thiel, Palantir, all of these things that are running behind the systems, and the connecting the supply lines as well as the communication network. And then Ralph was on yesterday, and we talked about how all of our communications go through these backbone connections, and it amounts to about three floors in a building in Chicago is where most of the communications pass in the northern part of the United States. So when you see the communication networks go down, it's all centralized. So by us building our own network, which is what we did here, we can in fact stay, and employ freedom of speech on here, whether people like it or not. And it'll be the end carriers that will take it down. So like we do go to one YouTube channel, an X channel, a couple of course, Brandenburg News Network. We also have 2 Tor nodes as well, and Odyssey and some other things that are out there. But if they don't make it through the censorship out there, you can always go to Brandenburg News Network, which is owned and operated by us, and it will be no censorship. And some people don't like it. It surprises me how many people talk about freedom of speech, but when they actually get it, they can't cope with differing opinions around them. Instead of just sitting back and patiently listening and not having to agree. It's a tough pill for people to swallow even now.
I think that's something that is very important that you touched on, because To me, I think that's something that came from the home. That is an infliction of bad parenting. I mean, that's where it comes from. Not being able to cope with responsibility or accountability at the home. How the hell are you going to do it in society?
Right. If you don't have strong parents that and this comes back to catering catering to children. When I see people that are catering to children, and this is going to be an unpopular view, but suck it up. This is the non-censorship situation, is that people are spending so much time running their kids around to every little thing that they want them in. The parents are getting no time with the kids to be able to teach them. So instead of going for the trophy and all of these things that are competitive based, the kids are not truly learning to work together. Because I don't care what you say, when you look at a team sport, this is not, it sounds good in theory, but everybody wants to be that star player. And so I don't promote from within. Company wise, I think it's a bad idea, because it sets up a dynamic, no matter what you say, of the employees will try to subvert somebody above them in order to climb up the food chain. So, and then the people on the top guard their turf, because they don't really want to share, because they don't want to be threatened by somebody smarter than them that's ranks below them. And so it creates a very, very bad dynamic of not having people at peak productivity for the good of the organization. And it sounds crazy to people, but try managing people after a while, and you start seeing that human failing emerge, so that they really are not working together as much as trying to get more raises. They're trying to get more recognition, and very few people can do it in a teamwork setup that actually goes with the best answer, no matter who comes up with it, and elevates everybody in productivity as a true team. It is very, very difficult to see that. So going back to having kids at home, if you're carting your kids all over the place, you don't have time to teach them those things that are important in life, because everybody else is raising your kids.
Yeah. Well, yeah, time in the car to teach them. I did a lot of teaching, driving my kids to school. It's where you can get their attention.
When you look at the way that the government has gotten into our local communities, that government, and you raise a society of children that think, I got to be better than the next one. I can compete with that one. We're a better team together than you are because I scored that point. Mm-hmm. It's about me being better than you. And then that person's thinking, no, I'm better than you. And you get that all through the society of people, and you get fights. That's what it comes to. You get fighting. This is what it ends up to be. And it's a lot easier to separate people when they have that mindset to divide them. And that's where we're at right now.
It is. And then they graduate or they move on to other things. And then you see what we have in politics, which is that win at all costs, because of having to have their opinions, be able to stand on a stage somewhere and have their opinions rule the day. And that's unfortunate, because it should be that we should be working ourselves into obsolescence, no matter what we're in, and make sure that we are moving on to other activities that need to be done, not entrench ourselves in organizations and such. It truly is, to be an adult, it's truly a pursuit of obsoleting yourself so that the next generation is well equipped to replace you, because that's the way life works. We come, we live, and we die, and we go spend our time with God. So how do we leave this world a better place? Is it our accomplishments? Well, yeah, it is to a certain degree, because we all should become, contributing in that. But a greater accomplishment is replacing yourself and being able to move back into anonymity and watch this thing run and only show up if it gets off the rails a little bit. And that's the problem with politics and most things. In most things, people want to get themselves entrenched where they never leave because that's their security. The true security is replacing yourself, obsoleting yourself, going and fixing another problem, and making sure that there's a structure that carries through proper procedures, and also the people that have the integrity and honesty and that can step into those positions and carry this forward. And then that's never talked about. Never talked about is obsoleting yourself.
Well, that's biblical, Donna.
Mm-hmm.
And that's never talked about either. And that's what we're missing.
True story. Do you serve yourself so you can be like a 6-year-old on a stage, and having everybody go, yay for you? Or is it, we're going to get some things done, make sure that we have proper processes to serve the whole in service, not for attention, not to win at all costs, and then go do something like shoveling horse manure or in a garden or something that you enjoy doing.
Mm-hmm.
Family,
kind of gives you a little bit of peace.
Yeah, go get peace, and then go and figure out some knitting or something, and go sit on a rock somewhere praying, and you know what I mean. Go sit on a rock somewhere playing, doing something, and then feeling that your success is that you pass those characteristics to the people that come after you. And that brings me back to President Trump. Everybody right now is on this rah-rah President Trump, which I think is wonderful. But we got to have people that are willing to do the work, and then who's going to step in after he dies? He's going to die at some point in time. It's the way the world works. What comes next? Who comes next? Who is willing to step up and carry the ball forward when human beings move on?
And before he dies, Donna, he's not going to be president after 4 years. So you only have 4 years.
And he's almost 80 years old.
Well, I'm not worried about the 80 years old. Not for him.
Well, yeah, but you know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
there's a clock ticking here. So the next step is to say who comes next that has the strength, the intelligence to run this thing forward, because he is the greatest president in the history of the United States, hands down. What happens next? What happens next? Who will step up?
Who will carry the ball?
This is making me think about your first guest who was talking about the GOP. And he was only at the county level, but he's talking about a lot of people getting together. And the whole purpose of the organization is to select quote unquote leaders. He was talking about an executive committee and all these people who were elected for elevated positions of some sort. And then we're going to select as a party the people that we're going to put into hopefully to office. So we're going to provide the options for the community to serve in the next election. And this takes a year or more sometimes for just one candidate to be promoted. The sole purpose of this organization is to help someone be elevated. And I'm remembering Martin Luther King Jr.'s speech about the drum major instinct, where he talked about how everybody wants to be first at something. And he said, you should be the first to be humble. You should be the first to be a servant. These kinds of concepts is different than what you guys were just discussing a moment ago about our culture. If we are humble and love one another, we're not concerned with those kinds of things, because we know when the time comes, it's easy to put someone in an office. Well, this person's proven that they qualify. That's it. That's it just doesn't have to be complicated. but we complicate it too much because people want to be greater. They want to be well known, they want to be powerful, they want to be popular, instead of they want to be first at being a servant. And that's something that they don't even necessarily want to be in place. Like Donna, you said many times, I don't want to be governor, but other people wanted me to be governor. And that puts you in a position where you have to decide if you accept a nomination, not that you strove for it and that was your goal in life.
Well, and that's the problem with people getting into politics now, is that they see it, it's structured like an industry. And I can tell you, just in a business situation, the one that's the most powerful one in the room always is the one that's the quietest. It's the one that sits back and watches people, try to hammer things out. They're always the ones that really are controlling what's going on, which is what we can see out there too, is that the ones that are the quietest in politics are the ones that are pulling the strings. And it's those people that you have to watch out for, because in the grand scheme of things in life, you watch out for the puppet masters, because there's reasons why people are allowed to be in those positions. They are allowed. They didn't win it, because if they want to take somebody out, case in point, Donna Brandenburg getting kicked off of 2 political parties in one election cycle, because God forbid should Brandenburg get in there and tell the truth. And so they allow people to hold on to that power structure and enable them to be in power and control the people, the money, the supply lines, the energy sectors. They control it all. They're not going to, they're going to have a very hard time. And until the people come together and decide to stop being like lemmings to follow these cults, but to only follow them if they're doing the right thing, and destroying the power structures that have been enslaving us, we're going to have the same thing we've had for decades and decades and decades. It comes down to the individual, not blindly following a party or anything like that, because I've had people tell me after the fact that they knew that I was getting royally, in their words, that I was getting royally screwed over by the Republican Party before I got kicked. They all knew it, and they kind of look shameful when they say it, because they know the truth and they did nothing and they know it.
Yeah, I got screwed over by the party too. And when it comes into who's going to go in and fix this, who's going to carry it on, a lot of us cannot truly utilize the GOP as it stands, because it is in direct conflict with our religious beliefs. I mean, I can say that myself. The actual party platform, their bylaws are written to favor dispensationalism in Christianity and leaves out faiths like my own. So that's, part of Donna, the Serbians, and the Christian Orthodox Coalition. A lot of that is to address this, because we have been silenced and pushed down in the party for years. Everybody in this has been, kind of cast aside of, well, you're a minority, so your voice doesn't matter, not realizing there's millions of us, right? And, I've thought about maybe I need to jump in again, because like somebody said earlier, Trump is only in this 4 years. The work is still going to be there. We're not going to fix the level of issues that we have in 4 years. We're going to put a dent in them, but then we have to worry about who's coming in 4 years later to reverse everything, just like Biden did in his first day of office. But for that to happen, to get people in, the whole party politic process is more of a detriment, in my opinion, than working in our favor. And it goes down to bylaws.
It's my opinion that if you go ahead and you take, because the Republican Party, like the Democrat Party, are organizations, okay, and they were set up by people with money. And so these organizations are organizations that can be run by individuals that have money, by way of money. You cannot fix a foundation of evil. You can't tell money what to do.
Nope.
People are human. The only thing you can do is get rid and destroy the party as a whole. The concept of a GOP or a DNC, right? You get rid of it. That way, you take away the power of the person who has the money that is pushing into the organization and controlling that organization from the outside, making up the bylaws, making up the rules, and watching the people come in as ants that don't really know what's really going on. They think they're doing everything for the right people, for the right cause. No, you got to get rid of the parties, because it is the parties that are the organization that is run by the Bill Gates or I'm not saying Bill Gates, but I'm using him as an example, or this George Soros, or the Bilderbergs and stuff like that. Those are the people that have these organizations that are running them like businesses. We are the worker bees. We need to get rid of that. If we get rid of the organization, those people can't control us. It's going to force
It's getting the money out. It's getting the money out.
It's going to force those people that are running these organizations to do something else. And you know what? When you back them in a corner, that's the best thing we can do, is back them in a corner. Let's get this shit done with.
Yeah.
Well, and you got to realize that in the state of Michigan, I'm going to bring this up once again, unpopular, but I'm going to say it. We have 22 oligarch families that are literally buying our elections. And I'll put a picture up because I met Betsy and Dick DeVos at that GOP meeting. And the connection with J6, with the fact that Betsy stepped down on J7 and Pence got $22 million. We have a problem. And not only that, Tudor Dixon was put up at RVD or RDV with DeVos money. And it looked to me like as soon as she made the primary, they jerked their funding and Whitmer got in. Nobody wanted Whitmer to get in. Okay. She's a loser. She's a traitor. She should have been on the first plane down to Gitmo, if you really want to know the truth. But check this out. And who put her up to it? Well, guess what? We've got traitor here. We've got traitor here. We've got traitor here. And look who's standing together with them. You don't have to be too smart to figure this crap out. Okay? They're all there. And you've got a traitor there. Traitor. They're all traitors.
Two of them.
So they can give $22 million to a rhino candidate, but they can't send $1 million to go help people that are dying in North Carolina.
And then they stand there with the Kent GOP, which let me post this a minute because, I got to tell you, if there were brass ones, I've got them, let me tell you. And it was kind of an interesting thing because I went up and I'll talk to anyone and I will give people a chance. I absolutely will give people a chance. However, if the failure happens, I can tell you what, there will be a problem because, it's like, I don't really give a crap if the party's like me or not. We're Americans and we have to serve this nation. And that's just the way it is. It's not being done. So let's see if we can, ta-da, go forward one. And I've got a little bit of a bitch to lodge here, but there you go. And, they're very nice people. They're very, very nice people. But the road to hell is paved by nice people that are pleasant to talk to. The money has to get out of this system, and that includes the mechanisms for wealthy donors to pick and choose our candidates who make it to the ballot. Mm-hmm. And that's just the way it is.
So
I feel like Trump is. Oh, go ahead.
For any GOP member, let's say, and I'll use Donna as an example because you did this. let's say Donna runs for governor through the Taxpayers Party in the next term. Ask any GOP member if you saw someone being, or a group of people being promoted within the GOP to run for that office, and none of them were as qualified for Donna. Would you promote the GOP to back Donna, even though she's a member of another party, and join up with the Taxpayers Party to promote that candidate because your party couldn't come up with someone better? Donna essentially did that with Trump. You have a candidate within your party, which you are even a vice chair of. Your job in the Taxpayers Party, most people would believe and expect you would be promoting the candidate put up by the Taxpayers Party, but that's not what you did. In fact, you criticized that member, and you instead promoted Trump. Could the GOP back the right person?
He did, in fact, say right before the election that he was encouraging everyone to vote for President Trump. Now, I tried through the Constitution Party, because I'm the vice chair of the Constitution Party, I tried to get a response from President Trump and said, if you throw your hat in and run under the Constitution Party, and I think it's possible, I would love to see somebody who's well qualified run under two different parties that are aligned with most of the core values. He could have run under the Constitution Party, I believe, as well as the Republican Party. Now think about this.
Both at the same time?
I think that there was some ability to do that, because look, he went to the Libertarian Party. He went to other parties. He never showed up at the Constitution Party. And I was like, come to the Constitution Party. We can nominate you also. And so you can be under two different parties, but he'd still be getting the votes for President Trump. And so I'm like, why didn't he go under the Constitution Party? I'm like, he could have gone through both. And that would have been an outstanding option, in my opinion. Why do we have to be sitting there at odds with each other? Why couldn't he have run under two political parties, or for the right thing, run under them all and unite us all into, under different parties, run them under all of them.
Get rid of the parties.
Get rid of the parties. Get rid of
the money and the parties.
Hands down, he was the most qualified. But I'm going to tell you what. Guess what happens with President Trump in office?
Yeah,
this power structure. And I invited them to come on BNN. I said, come on BNN. I said, I'm a very fair interviewer. I will say what I believe, but I will also give you the opportunity to say what you believe. And it's like, what happened on J7? It's like, come on BNN. I would welcome Betsy and Dick DeVos to come on BNN and tell their side of the story. Because what if we're wrong about some of this? And what if they have more to add? And what if we can't bring something forward and say this division stuff has to stop? And so let's put the best candidate forward and just say, you know what, we'll do, I'm going to say this. What if we do Brandenburg for governor and have it on not only the Constitution Party, but also the Republican Party? Would I be open to that? I would be jumping for joy over that, and come together to debase the theft of this nation away from Americans. If the Democrat Party, and we could do it on all of it, I'd be on the ballot. I would agree to be on the ballot for all of them, because the governor, honestly, should be the leader for all people, whether you agree or not. We're there. The government is there to defend and uphold individual rights. And then
but that won't work. You know why, Donna?
Because they want to fight.
No, because you'll be taking control away from the people that created these organizations, so that they may. Yeah, see, you're gonna take over their job. The people that started that organization, and you're going to interfere with what their plans were for the reason they protected or started those organizations. So that's why they can never allow something like that, Donna.
And maybe the DeVosses would love to work together. I would absolutely sit down and work with anyone, It doesn't matter who they are. If there's a better way to do this, and they may be really open to doing it a better way, but have never had the opportunity for somebody to reach out to them and say, let's sit down and get the money out of this and do something that could be one of the highest callings in their lives, in all of our lives, which is to sacrifice what we think we have to have the power and actually return it to the people. I would invite them to my horse barn. I would fix them dinner. I'd make them pies. We would sit down and have a great time. And it would be, you know, it's like when I talk to them, I'm not going to approach people with grab your torches and pitchforks. We want people to come together, even if we disagree with what's been done. If we can stand together, whoever it is, and put a barrier from the things that are bad or evil, we need to work together to do so.
Oh, I've got one. So last night I learned that President Trump is going to or had met with leaders of pharmaceutical companies. I don't remember if it was Pfizer specifically or what it was. And I suggested, I wonder, and I would hope that it would go something like, because the comment was that they were going to talk about providing cancer treatments. You're going to provide inexpensive, efficient, true cancer treatments for the people to cure the diseases that you caused, or else we're going to come after you for what you have done. Because I can see Trump doing that, but they're acting like, oh, he's going to have a dinner with the pharmaceutical people. Well, what is the rest of the country going to think? Why is he talking with the enemy? But I said, you know, you've got to be patient. Trump knows exactly what he's doing. Some of this is a narrative. Some of it is what you were just saying. Is he talking to them because he is a diplomat? Is he talking to them because he's going to threaten them?
Look at how much criticism.
Look at
he
his
got talking to
relationship with
Putin.
other world leaders.
Right.
Yeah, look at how much criticism he got talking to Putin. I'm not thinking Putin's that bad of a guy, quite honestly. They had a wonderful dialogue there, and probably the only reason why we haven't been shelled, missiled, or nuked over here from Putin, because he can do it with the missiles that he's got, is because he knows that Papa D is going to be back on the ground here, and things are going to be in the proper order. And so, I think that's a really big deal, and all I can say is, it seems to me like, look at what Putin's done to Russia. Of course, we're going to sit down and talk to people we disagree with. We have to. It's diplomacy. He's got everybody. They've got small farms. They have no gender mutilation nonsense going on. He's got things that really, that really are a better way to run things. And we need to talk to him about how he's running this, what his ideas were, how he's defended the people, how he's actually put God first. And I'm not thinking he's that bad of a guy. Quite honestly, I want to talk to him.
I want to talk to him. Here's something I've been talking about the last year. Our food supply, we know, let's just call it as it is, they're poisoning us.
They sure are.
Russia is the only country on the planet that bans both the importation and the cultivation of GMOs. Why are we not already having a discussion with Russia, and hopefully this happens next year, to lift those sanctions and start importing clean foods to the U.S. until we can have our food system recover from the damage that's been inflicted upon it? I mean, that's a very quick, way to get clean foods back to the people. I mean, and it's their food is cheap. I've looked into this. We pay $10 to $15 for a small block of organic cheese. You go over there and it's $2 or $3.
Well, let me tell you, it's the subsidies and the regulation is what's really hijacked our food supply and such, because they make more money. Okay, so I'm going to just bring you down through what happens with ethanol and the corn subsidies. The corn subsidies are evil beyond all description, and I'll tell you why. We had switchgrass all across the United States of America, which is a natural native plant, right? instead of giving the money to the farmers for the corn subsidies, who now have to plow, seed, spray with herbicides and pesticides and such, hit it with Roundup right before harvesting so you dry down the corn quicker, which is where the glyphosates are killing a lot of us, using all of their GMO corn seeds that they have to create so that it'll stand up to the Roundup. Such, why did we even go to any of this to haul this back? And I'll tell you why. It's because it was a way to stop people from creating their own, and they created their own industries based on having to add to something that grows naturally. If we had switchgrass, we could make ethanol out of switchgrass. You don't have to plow, you don't have to seed, you don't have to fertilize, you don't have to use any of the herbicides on it. You just mow it in the fall, take it down and create it just like you do any other kind of alcohol, which is what ethanol is. And then the next year, guess what? Magically, it appears again, and you stop all of the poisoning of the ground, of the crop, of everything. And you've got ethanol, as well as you can use it for fibers. You can use it for a ton of other things. And that's what happened. It was all about ethanol and controlling the supply.
Why are they so against it?
Why are they so against switchgrass?
Against the ethanol?
Well, no, they created it to create ethanol. It's an ethanol subsidy. It's not a food subsidy. It's field corn, and so some of it gets used for feeding cattle and such. I'll give you that, but it was more about the ethanol. And so you could have cut all of these subsidies, cut all of the plowing, the fuel used in plowing. It's a net loss to do corn, okay, for ethanol. If you just did it with switchgrass, you would have the same effect, the same outcome, but you'd skip fertilization, you'd skip the herbicides, you skip the erosion problems caused by the tilling, even though they're using a lot of no-till stuff on it. You skip the spraying it right before it's harvested. You'd skip the GMO corn seeds. You'd skip all of that nonsense. You just mow it down in the fall, and it magically comes up again in the spring, and the cycle starts all over again.
But then we lose the corn. We lose the food. We lose the food. They exchange it for not having enough corn for food.
No, because you can do that in other areas, but just looking at it just for the ethanol and how much we use as ethanol production. It's alcohol. It's just alcohol. Ethanol is alcohol.
But the government is against ethanol. I mean, it's always been a war on it.
No, they really aren't. That's what they say.
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
Heck
so why
no.
don't people do that? Is it just economically not feasible?
It's because they're getting subsidies. It's all about the subsidies and ignorance.
So the farmer makes more money growing corn because it's subsidized versus
Correct.
the switchgrass.
That's part of it. And not only that, the government and all the players, all the contractors are making money off the GMO feed corn or the GMO seeds, as well as the Roundup, as well as the fuel it takes to run the tractors around the field multiple times a year to distribute this stuff and manage it and such. I mean, think about all the other ancillary industries that would die off if the corn subsidies went away.
The food industrial complex.
Yes, it is. And it's keeping all the players in position.
Yeah.
And a lot of it has to intersect with big pharma, because if they're creating the diseases, they have to distribute those diseases, right? Best way is food supply.
Well, and watch what they did with the Transcontinental Railroad out there. They killed millions and millions of the American bison under the guise of protecting the railroad. It's bullshit, because they went through millions of acres of land and they exterminated the bison. If we started the bison up, which are self-sustaining, and manage it as a herd that can take care of itself, you don't need to have any shelter for them. You don't have to feed them. They feed themselves. They've been doing it for how many hundreds and thousands of years. They had to exterminate them so they could control the food supply. We don't need as many cows as we have. Go through grass-fed bison.
I'm with you there.
What's that?
I'm with you there 100%. They were here before we got here.
Yeah. Why did they kill that many? It's absurd.
It is.
Yep.
They come up with reasons, that they need to off one, something at all times. And it's all about their control. And, it's very antichrist in the way that it operates in itself, because God knows what he's doing. God created everything on this earth. And like you're saying, tens of thousands of years, even humans survived tens of thousands of years before big pharma and industry. So the whole system itself is antichrist.
Yep. And what they did was they weaponized those things so that we would look to them as having the answer for the things in which they downplayed. And we can reverse that. We can get rid of them and get back to the way of life that God wanted us to have.
Small communities taking care of each other, where you actually know people and you don't just look at them as a food source or something to mine favor or money or whatever it is off of other people, but being producers in our own right to take care of God's world is where we need to be.
And I would like to add one thing, and this needs to be a topic that we talk about, is that we need to stop the AI stuff, okay? Because it leads to the robots, it leads to replacing human beings, the carbon tax, okay? So we need to literally, having a navigator is great. Having, being able to text somebody, well, I don't think that's great at all. I think we should do away with texting, period. And I think we should get back to communication where we have to speak to one another. And every time we talk to one another, maybe we have to see one another's face so that we can see the body language so that we may better communicate with these people that we speak to on a daily basis. Just saying.
I agree. I think we're the last generation that remembers how life was and how we communicated as a society prior to, the cell phones being introduced in the 90s, when we were all, texting on the keypad and, oh, wow, this is cool. It has really, we don't have that human connection anymore. And that is actually, as humans, we want that connection. We need that connection.
Karen's got to leave. Hi,
Because
Karen.
while they're keeping us busy with all this bullshit, they are creating the replacement of the human being. These people are psychopaths. They are not doing this for our best interest. These people are seriously have mental issues. So does Satan.
I wouldn't even say mental issues at this point. Donna, I sent that book the other day and I've been diving into it. And, they talk about, angels being messengers, and that, angels can appear as human. Well, just as demons can appear as human, so can God's angel appear as human. And you kind of think, start broadening that out. And, I think it goes deeper than mental illness. I think some of these people are literal demons that are appearing as human.
Can you give me the book title, please? Can you give me the book title, please?
That was Lord of Spirits.
That makes a lot of sense.
Because we can't sit here as Christians and say, oh, we know that the demons are out there, but throw aside that, hey, God is greater than they are and has the ability to put his angels, his messengers, his army on this earth appearing as humans as well. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I had a discussion with somebody last night and they said, I really feel like a lot of the people that we see are actually NPCs that don't possess a soul. I thought that was interesting.
I've thought that before too.
It could be AI and we just don't know it.
Well, you go back into the AI topic, and if we go into ancient civilization and all the signs that we were a high-tech civilization, even thousands of years ago, and potentially something happened, like the pyramids, and there's all sorts of signs and artwork that point to that. But those are the things that have been covered up over the years.
Yep, that's what the CIA puts out there.
I like how that book is $17.
It's also on Audible, and so the author actually has a podcast on ancient faith. I haven't, got into that one yet, but he makes just a lot of sense in breaking it down, and it's really helping to open my eyes on what we're dealing with, what our group is dealing with, because, while we're talking independent citizen journalism, messengers, it really helps to break down the spiritual warfare aspect of it and maybe where all this is coming from. And one of the intros talks about, two of the demons. I forget, one of them is the demon of tyranny and Lilith being the demon of sterility. Well, that makes that just coincides with everything going on right now.
And you have the demons of Ishtar, which is a goddess of, in Greek, it was Athena, I think it was. But if you go back a little bit further, this is a goddess that said that she could be man or she could be woman. And this is also a goddess of sex, orgies, etc. It's just a whatever the human pleasures are, this is the ultimate goddess to bring that forward. And
Right.
and tell me that's not in play at Hollywood, or and tell me there's probably not a few of those floating around too. I mean,
I agree. And
David just
if you look at the Christian hierarchy of angels, you have like Saint Michael that, is over all the angels. So you would have the same concept on the demonic side, right? So
right.
just like we have the hierarchy on our side, there's going to be the hierarchy on that side. And so you see everybody running around doing this. Well, they're kind of like maybe in the lesser of that hierarchy. So I've been wondering who's at the top, because apparently they are worshiping and they are using this country as their, ritual ground.
the whole world, they're using it. And AstroTurf just came on and said they are absolutely demons, dead, crazy eyes, absolute hatred for Christian. It's Jezebel, Ishtar, Leviathan, and Baal, and Moloch. And you can go back to the Hillary Clinton emails and see them talking about sacrificing a chicken to Moloch. It's all real.
Yeah, and you see a lot of these people that we're viewing as possibly demonically afflicted at this point, at one time, may have been a good person, right? And that's another thing that this book covers, is talking about how angels and the hosts, they're given free will, and so they can be here and be working for God, but they have the free will to shift over to that other side during their time here. And I think that we can actually see that in a lot of the elected, even the Clintons at one time, I think, were better people. And then somewhere in the 90s, something happened and they became, started exhibiting those afflicted traits.
Yeah, there's some really crazy things going on, and if you go back to things like Planck theory, they've proven that there's not an infinite number of positions that things exist on in the earth, or in this realm where we are, that things snap to a grid. It's a very small grid, but it snaps to a grid.
Can't go through, huh? All right.
Here you go, Chris. It's a very small grid, but it is a grid that things snap to. And so when you start looking at that, you have to start questioning everything. And, it's like, who's talking to you, how they're talking to you. Are they able to talk to you through like the voice of God thing, that technology that they can beam from point to point? When I look at what happened with HARP and that sort of thing that people like to talk about. I really think this has to do more with the directional beams of antennas in the fighter jets, because they were put in the nose cone of the fighter jets and such, and being able to communicate directly through from one point to another point without even being picked up, which is crazy. We can go down that topic someday because it's kind of a fun topic to get into, things like active phased array antennas and that sort of thing, because that's really what they were working on with some of the things that people consider secret projects. They know how to do this. They've been doing it for decades,
if not centuries, because they have hidden so much from us.
True story. Well, boys and girls, you want to talk about anything else right now? How about last words? Melissa, Dr. David, and Chris.
Yeah, I will be diving back into a lot of the research we mentioned starting next week. So I'm going to be going through all of the legislation that's been filed in Texas and find the points of interest. And so I'll have those on the show next week. Of course, at the top is going to be the one where we're looking at the death penalty for those that do bad things to little children.
I think we should just keep trying to do our part and not sit back and rely on President Trump because, quote unquote, we won the election. We still have a long ways to go, and we've got a lot of fixing to do.
Chris.
Yes, this is a time of exposure, and when you expose things, look at how people get together on that, and they start figuring out ways to get around the bad once they figure out that it's bad. You know, look how the ones that get it start coming about on their own to figure out a better way. And I think I still have hope for all America that we can still have that. We still have that in our great country, and I think that's something that we can't give up on. And Donna, I want to say that you exemplify everything that I've just mentioned, because I know you, I know you, and I've seen you work, and it's definitely a compliment to this country of ours. And I think that if more people's eyes get open to the things that you're talking about, I think you're going to see what Trump talks about, a golden age, because exposure is everything. And it's not Trump doing it. This is God doing it. And the minute that people start thinking, maybe it is something bigger than man, maybe there is a God. As soon as we can get people to start going there, maybe we can work this out.
I think we do. I have great hope with this. I had to show you this. So we're expanding BNN a little bit. David, I need a headshot from you like this.
Okay.
And this is investigative citizen journalists that we're on together. And we're going to be expanding Brandenburg News Network. And I just want to let you guys know that I know each and every one of these people that are standing together in this. And I'm going to tell you right now, there's no finer people on the entire planet than the people that I have the privilege to talking with every single week here. Chris, David, Melissa, Ralph, Karen, Christina. I mean, we have a base of people that are willing. Well, Bill Moore. We have a base of people that are willing to put everything we have on the line for this country, for each other, and because we believe in it. We believe in God. We believe in the good that God built here in this world, and that it just needs a little maintenance right now. It needs a little maintenance. It needs good people to stand up to do the right thing without being influenced by evil, because evil's everywhere. You don't have to go too far to find it. It's going to find you, right? But to turn your back on it. Turn your back on evil. Turn away from it. And keep God right in focus and lean on him in every single thing that we do to become more like him. He made the way. He's our example. He is truly our example of conduct, of learning to do those things that are the invisible characteristics that are not human at all, that are not material, but those invisible characteristics that last forever. And that's where our focus needs to be. The things that you want to see here in the United States of America, the only way that happens is if each one of us approaches it introspectively, pulls the plank out of our own eye, cleans our own self up, our own homes up and such, and does the right thing, no matter what the consequences are, that we're willing to stand unwavering, doing the right thing under all conditions, the consequences irrelevant. And I think this is go ahead.
I would say, that being said, I have one more thing in closing here, and this is out of the book. And this goes into our spiritual discernment and during these times, right? And being able to, see somebody and what they're doing and determine who are they really working for in this. So when it comes to angels, and we know that demons are fallen angels, they are incapable of repentance, because humans are capable of repentance through linear time. Angels are unable to repent. So when we see people doing bad things, they are refusing to repent. They're not, making those statements that, I was wrong. And they're just going to continue on with their same narrative and justifying whatever evil that they're doing. We might be dealing with a fallen one. And that's going to be, kind of a simple way I see is those that are refusing to repent may be unable to repent, and those are the ones that we need to stay away from and watch out for.
Or how about this? A descendant genealogically of what you just spoke about. Because
my method is, just so everybody knows, is to charge right into the fire and either close them down or to give them a chance. And, there's nothing we need to be afraid of. Demons do not have power over us. And as long as, it's like they do not have power over us at all. They have no power here. Where the blood of Jesus is, there is no power for them. So they're nothing but a bunch of screaming little pukes. That's it. Right. And we stand in the power of Christ and God Almighty in all situations. We don't have to run. Jesus said at Caesarea Philippi, the gates of hell shall not prevail against you, which means run right in and let them know what they are not able to do. Tell them to shut their mouths. You can tell demons to shut their mouths by the blood of Christ and not put up with any of this nonsense, not be afraid, and take control of a bad situation. But the only way you can do that is fearlessly run right to the fire. And that's the way it is. And they are concerned. Then they have reason to be concerned. You don't mess with God's children, because it is going to end poorly for anyone who decides that that's a good thing to do. So
Satan, in the name of Jesus, stand behind me.
Yep.
And for further prove your point, Jeremiah 1:10 in the Bible, to paraphrase, says that we are the oversight of this planet, not the ones we elect, but we are.
Right, which we have to have that discernment to be able to weed them out and separate the wheat from the chaff.
There it is.
Yep. So, well, boys and girls, this was a great show. Let's say a prayer here a minute, okay? And go on to our day. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so very, very much for Chris and for Dr. David and for Melissa and Christina and Karen and Ralph and Bill and, everyone that comes on the show that is so gracious, Vicky and everyone who's so gracious to give their time, because we love you. we are here in your sandbox, and we're willing to do whatever it is that you ask us to do. It's your world. We're just here on assignment, a work visa. And we thank you for that. We thank you for the things that you send to us that are difficult, that we have to walk our way through with you in order to grow and learn and become more like you as you're smoothing out the rough spots on our character and our personality. And we thank you for that. We're thankful for every single thing, because all things work for good to those who love you and are called according to your purposes. We're very grateful that you care enough about us to include us. I know you don't need us, but you love us and you want to spend time with us as our good Father who truly cares about us and sees us no matter what's going on. Give everyone out there today courage and bravery to do those things which are difficult. Help them to know that there's always hope. Where you are, there's always hope. There's always your goodness, and we can turn to you at any point in time, and you will help us to lead us out of any type of trouble and darkness, and we'll be stronger and better for it. And we're thankful to you for that. Thank you for being such a great friend to us. Please heal those who are in need of a physical healing, and as well as a mental healing. Help people to feel brave about questioning those things that are difficult to question, and strike down anything that is a fear of man. That type of a spirit is one that we want no place here whatsoever as we turn to you, because you are our joy, our hope, our Father, our peace, our provider, our banner in our fights, and all those things which we aspire to be. Is we want to be like you, Papa. We love you so very much. In the name of Jesus Christ, we pray. Amen. So there we go, boys and girls. That part of the show that we always go to ding, 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 BrandenburgForGovernor.com, because I'm the best non-conceder who's ever not conceded in the history of the United States of America. And I want to have a discussion with the rightful president of the United States, President Donald J. Trump, in cowboy boots with that. So we'll see who wears it better, right? So I've never seen him in cowboy boots. So at this point in time, I win. So I love you guys. I got to tell you, you're the finest people, some of the finest people I've ever known in my life. And what an honor to sit and be able to talk with you as not just as people that know each other, but as friends. It's an honor. Every single day, it is an honor to know you and to stand with you and your families. And I know Jeannie's in the background there, and Jeannie, and God bless you all, truly.
Thank you.
And to all of those who are out there, God bless you all. God bless all those whom you love, and God bless America. Make it a great day. It's a choice. Every day is a choice. I have people come up to me all the time going, "How are you?" Like expect me to be, defeated or something. I'm like, I'm always good. It's a mental state of mind. And you know what? Truly, when you focus on God, you're going to have those times where maybe you're upset about things. We're human, right? We're not God. So got to get off that one, right? But he always brings us back in resiliency, and we will always be stronger, better, smarter, just better in all ways when we walk with God and we trust him in all things. So don't let those things get to you. Just go, okay, this is a bad day. What am I supposed to learn? And he will help you through that. So at any rate, have a great weekend next week. I've got a big week next week. I've got more people on. I decided to expand a little more. I'm doing TikTok videos in the morning before we are coming on. Need a headshot of you, David, because we're going to be posting this stuff as this family, this BNN family continues to grow. And I just think it's going to be a fun time. So have a great day today, and I'll see you back Monday. Chris will be on, our citizen journalist will be on Monday, as well as Vicki Davis. And then Joel Skousen, who is from Utah, part of the Constitution Party. He's an ex-fighter pilot. I find this man to be brilliant. I've sat down and talked to him for hours, and he is absolutely brilliant. He does an actual world news report, and he really actually he's like Daryl Church, who I love him too. He actually knows what's going on quite often behind the scenes, and his ability to to approach that in a very analytical way is amazing. He'll be on 11 o'clock Monday after the rest of the people. But yeah, so have a great day and a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you Monday.
Bye-bye. Bye, Chris.
Hang on.
Later. Bye-bye.
Bye, Donna.